do you have any kind of checklist or anything summed up that somebody could take away as like the things to look for when they are editing?
Yeah, more than a checklist, I have a kind of a list of questions that I always ask when I'm looking at an author's work, and I just recommend that people kind of ask themselves as they're going through their editing process or before they've started their editing process. So the first is 3 questions that I think are the most important. The first is, how does the protagonist change from the beginning of your story to the end? So obviously there needs to be some sort of a change, a progression. This can be in a number of different ways, but just how did they change from page 1 to the final page? The second one is, what is the message purpose of the story? So that can be, I don't necessarily mean it needs to be some sort of moralistic message, but why are readers reading this story? Why should they read this story? What sort of feeling are they going to get by the end? What sort of message are they going to get from the end? What are they getting out of this experience? And the third of those is your elevator pitch or your log line. So what is your 1 sentence to 2 sentence description of what this story is about? The reason I ask for that one is because it usually will pinpoint exactly what the core of the story is, because a lot of stories always have a lot of different elements. They can have a romance element to them, they can have an adventure element to them, they can have a moralistic element to them. So that can kind of pinpoint what is the most important. And going back to what we were saying about cutting stuff, this is the sort of thing that can help you really fine tune what is the key stuff for your story and what's not. And then the next thing I look at is questions having to do with the protagonist's journey. So does it start with a strong want? And what I mean by the want is that, does the protagonist want something? It can be that they want to save their family member who's been kidnapped. It can be that they want to find a boyfriend who will ask them to go to prom. It can be that they want their family to notice them. They feel invisible. It can be whatever it is. It can be big, it can be small, it can be life-changing, it can be just like a desire of theirs, but it needs to be well stated in the beginning of the book so readers can take that want with them through the entire read. Do they have varying successes and failures throughout the book? And can we track their arc from beginning to end? So is it easy for readers to see, again, how they change and how they develop as the story goes on? And how they are battling that want throughout the story? How are they trying to get what they want, and what sort of obstacles are in their way? The next thing to look at is the point of view. So does it act as a conduit for readers to experience the story in the ideal way? So what I mean from this is that there are lots of different ways to tell a story. You can tell a story in first person, you can tell a story in third person, you can tell a story with a reliable narrator or with an unreliable narrator. And a lot of them can tell the same story and technically work to fill that arc, to tell a satisfying story from beginning to end. But is it the ideal way for readers to view this story? I like to think of it like a movie. Is this the movie? Is this the angle that I want them to see for every scene? How inside someone's head are they going to be? Those sort of questions. And then can a reader trust your narrator? It seems very obvious, kind of like sometimes you do have, like I said, like an unreliable narrator. I don't really mean that. I mean, can I trust them to be efficient in their storytelling? So are they trying to bait me too much to look at details that are not important? Are they trying to incorporate side stories that distract from the main storyline? All that stuff. I want to read a book that's efficiently done in the storytelling from start to finish, and I want to trust that the narrator is capable of doing that, and in turn that the writer is capable of doing that. And then, does the voice of the narrator feel like they're speaking to the desired demographic? So this is looking into kind of a little bit more of the business of publishing. You obviously have desired readers that you want to buy this book, you want to read this book. So if you're writing a YA book, you have to make sure that it's targeting teenagers and speaking in a voice that teenagers would identify with, all the way up to if you're writing a literary fiction, what sort of audience are you looking for there? Does it speak to that sort of audience? Is the book relatable and have a strong message? And the last question that I ask is, Do all of the storylines follow the theme and the message? And do they all resolve properly by the end? So this is a big one that I think a lot of people kind of miss in a lot of their own self-editing. There's always a lot of loose ends that you're going to have, depending on the genre that you're in. There'll be more or less. Obviously, if you're in like a suspense or a mystery, there's going to be a lot more that you have to kind of juggle. But just making sure that not only is your main storyline have a start and a finish, but also any sub storyline that you have or any details that you have, those are being wrapped up by the end of the story.
How many drafts in would you start to ask those questions?
I am more of a planner writer. So I ask myself a lot of these questions when I'm doing my own writing before I've even started to write. But I would say redo this kind of a checklist before every edit, because new edits are going to reveal new things and kind of tweak your answers a little bit. But these are the sort of things you want to keep in mind as you're doing your read. I kind of am continually asking myself these questions as I'm reading. As I'm reading a scene, I'm seeing how it fits in with the answers to these questions. Is it telling the story that it's supposed to tell? Is it doing it in the most efficient way possible? So it's kind of, they're more questions to have in the back of your mind throughout your edits, rather than it being one period to like answer the questions and then you don't have to think about them again.